All right, what's up, family? Here we go. This is my crack at this topic, this controversial topic. And I'm going to try to break it down and try to examine and break down this whole issue that the Puerto Ricans are having regarding hip hop and their participation in it. All right. Now, of course, we all know Fat Joe started this whole controversy by saying hip hop was created 50-50 by Latinos and blacks, right? So, my issue is to examine that. And if you see there's two statements that you see. Was hip hop created by blacks and Latino 50-50? The answer to that, hell no. Now, what I do concur with is the second statement. Did Puerto Ricans play a significant role in pushing the culture forward? Absolutely. And I think if Fat Joe left it there would be no problem. But he took it a step further, and that's why this controversy is afoot today. There's this YouTuber. His name is Derek Cologne. His YouTube channel is Urban Exegesis with Dr. Derek Cologne. And he's on this mission to prove that Puerto Ricans are an integral part of the creation of hip hop. Now, mind you, he acknowledged that black people created hip hop, but he says that that Puerto Ricans helped build it. Now, we all know, if you look up in the dictionary, build and create are synonyms. So he's basically co-signing what Fat Joe is saying. He's basically saying the same thing. So recently he made several videos, and I've been corresponding with him via commentary and posts, and I'm trying to educate this brother, but he refused to see my point of view. So I told him, you keep it up, man. You're going to get embarrassed one day. But there's no stopping him. More power to him, right? So needless to say, he comes up with this concept called hood culture. So we're going to look at that. Black culture versus hood culture. Hood culture. Now you would ask yourself, well, what is hood culture, right? What is that? Well, he defines it as the fact that blacks and whites and whatever, Puerto Ricans, whatever, living in a community, basically having similar experiences, therefore making a unified culture. And that's erroneous. Anybody that's lived in a multicultural area knows that not everybody have the same norms, the same values. It doesn't work that way. While kids can get together and hang out and play and get along, when they go to their homes, there's a different culture awaiting in their homes, right? So if you're Hispanic, especially in the days when I grew up, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, right? In Newark, New Jersey, down neck in the project. So when I grew up, I knew most Puerto Ricans spoke Spanish. Their food was different. Their customs were different. They were different from black culture. Black homes, our food was different. The things we like to do were different. The music we like to listen to was different. We listened to Marvin Gaye, James Brown, whatever. They were listening to some salsa, whatever they were listening to, right? So even though you live in the same culture, in the same hood, does not necessarily mean you're the same people and that you're going to develop the same way. That's common sense. But his idea by using the word hood culture is to regionalize hip hop. And so if he could regionalize it by saying it's a Bronx thing, right? Then he could basically say, well, we all live together. So since hip hop came out of the Bronx, then is our music as well as black people's music. It don't really belong to nobody. It belongs to people of the Bronx. He's totally discounting the elements that go into creating hip hop, right? All of it comes from African American culture. All of it. Not one piece comes from Latin or Puerto Rican culture. So he's co-opting the culture and making it part of his own. And asking us as black people, why are we so defensive? Because black people recognize their culture when they see it. I'll give you an example. I grew up in the church, and I remember going to my church, and then we would have afternoon programs, and we would go to other churches in other towns or even other states. And one thing that was common, no matter what church, Baptist church or Kosher church you went to, the music was similar. They sang pretty much the same songs as you did at your church. So you felt at home and it didn't feel strange. That's culture. So when black people hear their music, it doesn't matter if they're in the South. They make a big thing about the fact that they were in the South as if that was a bad thing. Because they didn't know about hip hop. Therefore, it didn't belong to other FBAs because they didn't belong, because they weren't aware of this culture of hip hop. So it was another way of discrediting them. And I thought it was kind of unfair. Give me a second. Let me see. I'm going to get this post. He had this guy as I try to get this post up. Let me see. On his latest show, he had two people on it. One was this female. Her name was Adriana Casa, right? And then there was this dude, this other brother, Puerto Rican brother. His name was, I think it was, what was his name? I think it was Randy, right? And throughout the video, they were saying some kind of disrespectful stuff about blacks. The girl was talking about, black people don't know who they are and they need to educate themselves. They don't need to call themselves FBAs and this and that. But it was the dude D, he called himself, that said something crazy. Let me see if I can tee it up.
Respond to that.
Let me stop. Let me stop here. Okay, listen to this. This from his latest show, and this is this dude Randy going to comment talking about black culture. Hold on. Here we go.
Here right now. That's the only reason why I called in. Let's leave the nothing wrong talking about culture, but the topic is hip hop.
Let me do that again.
Here right now. That's the only reason why I called in. Let's leave the nothing wrong talking about culture, but the topic is hip hop. And
but they're the ones who, again, it's a straw man argument. They can't do hip hop, so they go to culture.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I want to stay in hip hop.
Yeah, I mean, listen, whoever wants to, circumvent the topic of hip hop is going to get ignored because you're not bringing in the actual facts. You know what I'm saying? You got to bring in the actual facts. Hip hop, 1973. Unless you can produce a hip hop name, crew, or all FBA crew prior to 1973, you're talking nonsense. If I freeze it.
Okay. Now, he's basically saying his argument that black people can't claim hip hop if we can't produce a crew that was all FBA. As if because there was a Hispanic involved, that somehow delegitimized us to claim hip hop as our culture. Let me go forward.
Pardon me.
Yeah. Let me put up this comment. You see it on the screen. America's maker, hip hop is Black American culture. Again,
we're not gonna address that because if you're gonna say that, you gotta follow up with facts. Mm-hmm. So I can say hip hop is Puerto Rican culture. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Can I factualize what I'm saying? Yes, I can. I can talk about Tex. I can talk about Charlie Chase. I can talk about Whip. I can talk about the foundational B-Boy crews.
Yeah, you could talk about them, but what did they create? Nothing. They were followers. They were participants. You can't name one thing that they created. Let's move on.
Don't even let me go into graffiti. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
And who gives a hell about graffiti? I don't care about graffiti. As far as I'm concerned, I don't even know why graffiti is a part of the elements of hip hop.
Well, when you say hip hop is a Black American culture, what can you present to substantiate that? Not a thing.
Respond to that.
See that?
Wow. Now you, you believe that? He says that we can't prove. In essence, he's basically saying hip hop has nothing to do with African American or Black American culture. That's the arrogance and the total disrespect. I heard a lot of disrespectful things, but this dude, he gets an Emmy for that. That was the most disrespectful thing that I've ever heard. Hip hop has everything to do with African American culture. And because he's so blinded by Puerto Rican pride, he can't see it. None of those people can see it because they're the most proudest people on the planet. They're the number one people that will have their flag hanging from their mirror in their car. They're so proud, and that pride is blinding them, and it's sickening to watch. You know, so this whole thing about hood culture, Black culture, no, it's Black culture. Plain and simple. All of hip hop comes from Black culture, the elements. Let's put it this way. Even if you said it came from the Bronx, what did you do? And I'm even including Black people in this analysis. No Black person, no Puerto Rican person developed a music that said hip hop. That was a genre of hip hop that was so different that didn't come from anything else. This was already music already made. How are you going to claim something that's already been made? It's ridiculous. And definitely the only people who could claim that, at least take some ownership of it, is Black people, because it's their music. It comes from their culture. So it's ridiculous, this whole nonsense. You know, let me move on. Okay, we're going to talk about culture. Let's talk about culture here, right? Because this is what it all boils down. They don't want to talk about culture because that's their Achilles heel. Because when you talk about culture, you really start to examine why this is a Black thing. This is a FBA thing, right? What they try to do, they want to try to move the dates up closer to the 80s as much as possible so they could include as many Puerto Ricans as possible, right? So they talk about Tex-Mex and Whip-a-Whip, right? But they were passing. These were Black Latinos. They were passing. They wasn't claiming to be Puerto Rican at the time. No, for the most part, from what I understand, nobody knew. And that's the point. No one knew. So they were moving as foundational Black Americans. They were assimilating to Black culture. That's the bottom line. Just because there were members of the Puerto Ricans, members of the Zulu Kings and the Black Spades, doesn't mean somehow this was a Puerto Rican organization. No. This was still an FBA organization that allowed you guys to come in. Definitely if you rocking with them, because if you rock with, if they feel, hey, Black people, if you rock with us, we rock with you. That's what we do. Let me give you a quick example. There was a Japanese American guy who was in the, I don't think they call them concentration camps, I forget. In World War II, when the the internment camps, there you go, internment camps. And when he got out of that as a kid, he later grew up and he joined, guess what he joined? That Black Panthers, I forget his name. And he rose to a high level in the organization. Now, Black people don't care where you come from. If you're rocking with them, they're going to rock with you. So let's not get this twisted. Just because he's Puerto Rican, it ain't about culture. It's not about culture. It's about what are you doing for the Black people. Are you on their side? Are you down with their causes? That's what's important. Don't bring culture, because that's the problem with like with Dr. D and Adriana and Rand. It's about culture. When they say Puerto Rican, they're making it appear like it's a cultural influence. It's absolutely no cultural influence. Hip hop is void of cultural influence from Latin America, and from, matter of fact, from the Caribbean as well. Let's get that straight. Y'all prove me wrong. Tell me I'm lying. I'm telling the truth, right? So let's examine culture. And I kind of touched on it earlier. You know, usually culture is about language, food, customs, and religion and music, right? I highlighted language and music for a particular reason because, like I explained earlier, when people go into their homes, the religion is not going to be the same. The food is not going to be the same. The customs are not going to be the same. But they're going to be shared things that you're going to experience on the playground, let's say. You know, while a Hispanic might be able to speak Spanish, when he comes out and play with other people, he's going to speak English. A black person can relate to that guy. The same thing with music. Hispanic, Puerto Rican music and salsa, that wasn't popular back then. What was popular was FBA music. That was popular. So the Latinos gravitated to that. Charlie Chase talks about gravitating to that. DJ Tex talked about gravitating to that. Kool Herc talked about gravitating to that. This was Black American culture that they were gravitating to. Y'all don't get this twisted. Then let's talk about language. We're going to talk about language, right? Black people are the ones who create the language of urban America. Let's not get that twisted. Let me give you a little list. These are lists of words and phrases that Black people created that most people in urban America, and even if you're not living in urban America, you heard, and sometimes you even speak these words. No other culture has produced as many words added to the dictionary as Black Americans have. Let me give you some. You have baller, banging, beast, beef, bling, blow up, bugging, chill, the bomb, I'm down. Let's see. You feel me? Freak, frontin', ghost, grill, hit me up, ho, holler. Let me see. Keep going here. Ill. It's all good. Leaving me hanging. Let's bounce. My boo, nigga, no doubt. Old school, peace out, shorty, simp. Slamming, strap, straight, thick, tight, toe up, tripping, true that, whack, what's up, what's happening, whip, wifey, word, yo, you're tripping. And that's just a few. What group other than FBAs contribute as much to the English language as Black Americans? And many of these words are used in rap records today. Huh? I'm waiting. Now, we're not even going to talk about the music. I don't even know how a Puerto Rican could even say that the music is not FBA. That's just retarded. How are you going to listen to the music and not, associate that with Black people? That's just plain old denial. And it's hard to imagine that you could listen to hip hop and not say, "Oh yeah, that's definitely Black American music." Let me pull up this, because now we're going to talk about the importance of. I'm not going to go into detail about Disco King Mario, because you go to Michael Wayne TV and you could get a lot of information on him. But Dr. D discounts him because he calls him a disco DJ. So he's not a hip hop DJ. So he don't get credit. That's part of that moving that timeline up, closer to the 80s. So he could insert Puerto Rican names in there. But it ain't gonna work. It's not gonna work. Now, why do I got Chic up here? Because look at the title. How Chic's Good Time Launched Rap. The 1979 song pays tribute to Kool and the Gang, but wound up popularizing hip-hop. Guitar Nile Rodgers and bassist Bernard Edwards of the disco group Chic. The disco group Chic. The disco. Now, why do I emphasize disco? Dr. D says Mario was a disco DJ. Mario wasn't the only one playing disco. Kool Herc was even playing disco. You just can't play break beats for 10 years? That's ignorant. It's all of that was played all through the 70s. Funk, soul, disco, R&B was played all through. All of those elements of music help create hip hop. Now, why is this significant? Let me move on. Why is this significant? Let me grab this real quick. Okay. I recently listened to Rapper's Delight. And Rapper's Delight the rhymes were to a disco song. Good Times. A disco song by a disco group. And everybody, for the most part, credits Rapper's Delight as the first commercial hip-hop song. So when did hip-hop start? Did it start in 75, 77? Or can you even link it to 71 when Disco King Mario was playing in the parks and stuff? Because if disco had nothing to do with hip-hop, it wouldn't have been a choice of music for Rapper's Delight. So it's all connected. All that FBA music is all connected. There's no lapse. Hip-hop just didn't evolve on its own. Hip-hop has roots. And hip-hop roots are embedded in African-American tradition. That's a freaking fact. Now let's examine the language. And I talked about this earlier in culture. The language of Rapper's Delight. Needless to say, it's King's English. But then there are words in there that Black Americans, FBAs, popularize. Right? First word is hip. And you hear that in the Rapper's Delight in the form of hip, hippity hop hop, hippity hip. Right? You hear the word fly. And you hear the word whack. Now on the face, all of these words have different meanings. If you look up hip in the dictionary, as the first definition is going to talk about the bones in your midsection. Right? You talk about, you look up the word fly, it's either going to refer to an insect or going to refer to something like taking flight. And whack will have a different meaning. It's almost similar, but Italians use the word whack. They used it for killing somebody. Blacks turned that word on its head and used it for not, corny. That word made famous by Whitney Houston, crack is whack. Let's go back to hip. Hip, that became a word associated with Black Americans through the jazz scene in the 30s and 40s, right? Along with the word cool. Even though they have different meanings, blacks created a different meaning for these words, making those words part of black vernacular. And these words from the 30s and 40s still being used today. There's a connection. Just like we talked about, let's talk about the word fly. Fly. When black people started using that, that used to refer, or that probably still refers, to a very beautiful woman, right? So these are words that we put in the urban vernacular that makes its way into rap music. What words or phrases from Latin America, from Puerto Rican culture, that's in rap music or hip hop culture? Let's talk about the 70s, because that's what we're talking about. That's what we're focused on. Absolutely nothing. So when you claim to be the creators of something, or you help build something, you cannot claim something that you can't show any receipts. You have no receipts that shows any implementation of any cultural ties to hip hop. And that's what we're talking. So when black people bring up culture, that's what we're talking about. Because having individual participants is not the same. Because those individual participants come from a culture. They don't come from out of a vacuum. The Bronx didn't create those individuals. There was a culture that preceded that. The word rap. There's a group, Temptations, a song called Ball of Confusion, 1970. Rapping. The word rapping is a black word. It used to refer to, when I was growing up, talking to a female, trying to hit on a girl. Now we use the word hit on a girl, But back then it was, let me rap to you. Let me rap to you, sister. Whatever. You would talk like that. You know what I'm saying? That's where that word came out. And then that word was carried on into what we call rapping today. He dogs out Pigmeat Markham and said, well, that's not rap. Pigmeat Martin is modern day rapping evolved from a person like Pigmeat Martin. Blacks been rhyming all through the centuries, whether it be to music or not. You want to downplay the importance of some of these early rappers or early rhymers and call them nursery rhymes and they not rapping. Everything has a beginning. Everything evolves. And you sound ignorant when you can't make the connections. And you don't make the connections because you don't want to make the connections because you want to take over our culture. That's the bottom line. And we're not having it. The word boogie, that's a totally black word. That's a organically black word. That word didn't exist until we created it. And that is in the song Rapper's Delight. Boogity boogity beat comes from boogie woogie. Where are your words in the first commercialized hip hop record? You have none. I don't even really have to address the music thing because you have no music to introduce to hip hop. I already demonstrated that disco, that genre was used to push forward the first commercial hip hop record. So that means Disco King Mario is as important to hip hop as Kool Herc. So let's get the history right. Let's not pick and choose a narrative that best suits you because you're going to lose every time. You talk about black people don't have no receipts. We got too many receipts. I don't even know how you get the guts to go on YouTube and make this argument with the weak arguments you have. I try to tell you, Dr. D, do not push this because you want to look bad. Let me point out this, and this is not to be disrespectful to you. There are millions of Puerto Ricans in the United States. And I mentioned Puerto Ricans are the most proudest people on the planet. And they're following this thing. And there's a reason why you don't have you should basically, if you were on the right path, you should have at least 50,000 subscribers. But the fact that you're not even at 600 should tell you something. Not everybody is buying it, not even your own people. Your own people know better. So you would do yourself a service to let this thing go, because it's not going to work out in your favor. All right, so with that, I'm done. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in it. I'm not looking for subscribers. If one or two people see this and you think this information will help you deal with the nonsense coming from the Puerto Rican community or coming from these 3 individuals, I hope you use it. I hope that you find it helpful. Because it's not hard to dismantle this nonsense. Because like if you lie, you always got to find another lie. But if you come from a position of truth, you'll be strong all the time. So with that, I'm going to leave. I'm out of here, and I'm going to make another video dealing with rap, not rap, well, somewhat, but it's pretty much dealing with jazz music, and how we're on the verge of losing that as well. So you guys keep tuned, stay in tune for that. Hopefully I'm gonna post that probably sometime mid next week. So I got to put it together and just look out for that one, okay? All right, so with that, I'm out.